Hello YouTube, welcome back to Kind Heart Homestead. My name is Ben, and I'm here in our solar shed on our property in the mountains of Virginia. So welcome back if you've been here before. If not, I'll go ahead and explain. This is the first structure we're building here on our property. It's completely off-grid. This will be our first building that connects to our well pump and our septic tank. This is essentially going to be a glamping situation. That's glamorous camping. So when we're camping here, as we build our house, develop our garden, and the other homestead and off-grid related tasks we want to do, this will act as our home base. And that means we don't have to plan around the weather as much when we come up to Virginia, because we'll have a safe place to be, a heated space, sheltered from the weather and the elements and the animals. There are bears in this area, so it's nice to have a place to keep food. Anyway, you can see behind me this massive wall of fiberglass insulation. So today's task is to try to get as much done as I can. I'll spend tomorrow wrapping up anything I didn't finish today. So if you want to see any of that, please stick around, and I'll be right back. Thanks.
To start off with my insulation project for the solar shed, I'm putting in fiberglass insulation in the walls. You can see here it says R15. That's about the highest R value you can fit in a 2x4 depth. Another specification to keep in mind is the width of the bats. They sell them in two different widths, one for 16-inch stud spacing, one for 24-inch on-center stud spacing. So these are not full 16-inch because the stud spacing is actually 16 inches minus inch and a half, which is the width of a stud. So these are designed to perfectly fit with friction in there, but to prevent them from sagging, I like to staple them to the studs. The paper facing is pretty loosely glued on there. As long as you don't pull it too hard, it won't disconnect from the fiberglass. But then when I have to work around electrical cables, you can see down below, I have to cut a small cube out of there to fit around an electrical box. But for wires, all I have to do is pull apart the fluff of the fiberglass so that the back half goes on the other side of the cord and the front half goes on the front side of the cord. So the same insulation is there. There's not enough thickness to the electrical wire to disrupt that insulation value and provide any sort of thermal bridging. And that's pretty much the easiest way to do it. So you can see now, just in a matter of minutes, I was able to get like 80% of this wall insulated. It definitely makes it easier when you have the paper backing. In my climate zone, there's no need to apply a moisture barrier. So that's why if you're up north and you're used to seeing some sort of plastic, I'm not using that. Down here in the south, I'm kind of on the edge in Virginia of being in a cold environment, but it's really not cold enough to warrant all the sorts of precautions you might have up north. Because I just started this insulation project, I don't have any remnants or cut off scraps to fill into these small areas. And I'm trying to completely finish one wall at a time. So just to make things work with my order of operations, I'm cutting full insulation bats down to size to fit above and below the window. And the reason I've decided on this order of operations, just kind of doing one side of the room at a time, is because I don't have a lot of space in here. So what you'll see eventually of what my plan is, it's to insulate one wall at a time and then get the drywall put over it. And right now I have all the drywall blocking the south wall. So the chances are pretty good that it's going to take me a couple trips to get these two walls insulated, get the drywall up, and then I'm going to have to move all of the drywall, including those heavy moisture resistant ones that go in the bathroom. All of that's going to have to be moved, and there's no point of moving it until I have a finished, or I guess I should say, just a drywalled, unfinished wall ready to lean them against, so then I won't have to move them all again. So I need a little boost to be able to reach the top plate in order to secure the insulation flush against the wood. On the first wall, I stood on a small stack of lumber that spanned the length of the wall because those were extra studs I hadn't used yet. On this wall, I happened to have the scaffolding there, so I used that to give me a boost. These are 8-foot walls, and the studs are 93 inches. Because if you buy a 93-inch stud, that takes an extra 3 inches to make an 8-foot wall, but an extra 3 inches is what the bottom and top plate would give you. I have a double top plate, so I actually have an 8-foot wall plus an inch and a half, but that inch and a half could easily be eaten up by flooring and drywall on the ceiling. I'm not planning to put flooring in here, but having that flexibility to where I have a small gap under the drywall to put it is definitely a bonus. And then I do plan on having half-inch drywall on the ceiling. Before I can call this wall complete, I'm bending up the bottom foot or so of each of my insulation bats to spread out some diatomaceous earth. This is a product that any homesteader should know about because it's helpful keeping pests away from your chicken coop. We're using it on the top of our bottom plate throughout this building to prevent any sort of cockroaches, bed bugs, fleas, or whatever could potentially be small enough to get through the sheathing on the outside. It'll prevent all of those from getting in. It'll kill them. It's made from skeletons of diatoms, I believe, which are some sort of algae. And what the powder will do is it'll suck out all of the oils and fluids that are in the pest and essentially dry them out until they're dead, and they'll prevent them from getting inside. It's time now to move on to the ceiling insulation. And this is essentially a vented attic, even though I'm not going to use it for storage and it's not going to be accessible after I put up the drywall. It is technically an attic, and I have these styrofoam, I don't remember exactly what you call them, these little bats that allow the airflow to come up from the vented soffit past my insulation and then send that air up to my ridge vent, which is not yet installed, but it will be later. So for now, I'm installing R19 paper-backed bats, similar to those that I put in the walls, except these are much thicker R19 uh, to fill up a 2x6 cavity instead of a 2x4 cavity. And they're also wider because I have 24 inches on center spacing for these joists, rather than the 16 inches on center spacing that my wall studs have. I'm relying on the paper to sort of tack and tether everything up to the ceiling because I'm going to put more insulation on top of these. You can see some of this other fiberglass insulation hanging around near my head. That's a 40-foot roll that I'm going to cut in half to do two 20-foot lengths per roll. I bought several of those rolls, and basically what I'm doing is I'm rolling them out perpendicular to the bats that I'm putting in. So they're perpendicular to the joists, and they will actually insulate the joist from above and prevent thermal bridging, where most of the joist might otherwise bridge that temperature I have inside to the outside. So you can see here the process is a bit tricky. I have to basically hold up the insulation with my head while I get the first couple staples in. And then I have to go back and gradually unroll the other perpendicular insulation one bay at a time as I move my way across. I'm cutting the fiberglass here to span both sides of the 2x6 blocking that I have in the center of the ceiling. And I spanned these blocks down the length of the building to keep the joists the proper distance apart. That way it'll be easier to install the drywall later. So I'm doing that as an alternative to cutting these bats to length and then fitting them and using up scraps and things like that. To avoid the scraps, I'm just making that incision, but I'm keeping the paper there. And the paper goes over the 2x6. Then in either direction, the fiberglass only has to move 3/4 of an inch apart.
All right, I've done the best I can to give you guys a bit of a view. I know there's insulation hanging everywhere, but this building is so crammed with materials that I can't have a good spot to put the tripod and have enough room to work at the same time, especially because these 12-foot sheets of drywall take up the entire room. So I've thrown all of the unopened insulation bags outside. I had to wait for the rain to stop and dry out for a bit before I could throw stuff outside, but now I'm tracking mud in here, so it's just a complete mess. Anyway, I'm going to try to get this drywall lift loaded up with this slightly modified piece of 12-foot drywall. I needed to cut just a couple inches off of it because of the way that the first bay is dimensionally. These joists are 2 foot on center, except for the edges, which are a bit smaller. And I got a few of these 12-foot sheets, just kind of thinking in my head, the building's 12 foot wide, why not get 12-foot pieces? But then I realized that that would be parallel with the joists, and that's not really the best way to do it. You want to go perpendicular to your framing members whenever you're putting on sheet goods, if you can. So I'm going to try to lift this up now. I've never used this drywall lift for drywall before, so we'll just see how it goes. What some builders do is they put 2x4 or 2x6 nailers everywhere. And that all that is an overhanging board that gives you a continuous nailing surface for your drywall. One thing that I would like to try as an alternative to that are these drywall clips. So say I had a long skinny place where I had to put this and there was no board on the end, or maybe this would be more accurate. Say you have like a board over here and a board over here and this goes against the wall. You can't have it unsupported that much or else it'll droop. When you're trying to tape it, you'll push it up with the knife and then it's going to droop back down and pull your tape off. So let me put this the correct way. This would face down. So if you had something around the corner, like some sort of stud, this would be able to hit it. So in the case of that wall, I have a double top plate. That's the continuous board that I could nail drywall to if it was on the wall, but I don't have that for the ceiling. So this is essentially an adapter that converts a nailer for the wall to a nailer for the ceiling. Or say you started your layout 4 vertical studs on one side of the room and continued 16 inches on center like I have here. Well, that works for one wall, but the other wall doesn't have a nailer. So this allows me to use that 2x4 that's on this wall for the drywall on this wall. I bring all that up because, like I said, 2 feet on center is a bit much. So I think I'm going to clip these in between to give me a tighter screw pattern on the edge of the drywall.
Since my joists are spaced approximately 2 feet on center, I am placing one of these drywall clips in between each of them. So along this long stretch of the drywall edge, I can get a screw around once per foot. And this may not be necessary for the entire room as I move forward, but since this is my first piece, and I know I'm not going to have the wall drywall up yet to support it, I just want to make sure this is absolutely secure for this trip.
So it seems like what I have to do is tip it so one end is up in the corner. I can start my fasteners there and move my way across. You know, these are 2 foot on center joists, which I've heard is kind of on the edge for strength for 1/2 inch drywall. Some people say different brands of drywall perform differently than others, and I didn't really have any options because the closest Lowe's that's convenient for me to get a U-Haul and load up the truck only sells one brand of drywall. So I just bought this Milwaukee drywall screw gun. I've never used one before, but this is the perfect opportunity to test it before I build a house, along with these drywall clips. If this stuff doesn't work, I'll know better for next time, but since this project is so small, I can do things manually. Obviously, it takes longer to do manual stuff. I can use an impact driver or a drill and just pull down before I overdrive the drywall screw. But I'm determined to try to do things with the best practices, so I have a pocket full of drywall screws. Now I'm going to start on this.
Due to my concerns about the 24-inch spacing of these joists and the thinness of the drywall being at half-inch, I'm installing an unnecessary amount of screws just to be safe. These are probably close to 6-inch spacing, kind of taking cues from when I did my perimeter nailing on the sheathing boards outside. They were all 6 inches or less spacing around the perimeter. So that's just what I'm trying to do here. Maybe any of you who do drywall professionally can tell me what the spacing should actually be for half-inch drywall on the ceiling with 2 foot on center spacing. But these drywall screws are cheap. I actually still have them on hand from other projects. So this building's honestly not that big. I can afford to waste some materials as I kind of learn the trade. But after that first one, it's pretty easy to just cut the next drywall panel to the exact same dimensions as the first because my joists are parallel or very close to it. I don't have to do much customization except just cutting a few inches off of the end. Then once I get up there, repeating the process, put a lot of pressure on one side of the board to get a few screws in, then gradually move the tension of the lift to the other side. You can see I use my 5 foot long straight edge or level as a kind of like a jack to hold up one corner of the panel as I need it.
I recently ordered a drywall toolkit on Amazon. It came with several things, one of which I will show you right now. It's these little pyramid things. I don't know exactly what you call them, but basically they fit into a standard single width receptacle box. You can see there's two on that wall behind me. I've already put these in. Not only do they stab through the drywall to help you locate the box without measuring, but this curved design acts as a shield to protect your cables or wires from your electric rotary tool. So this is the first time I've used these or a rotary tool. In the past, what I've done is just measure everything ahead of time, and that's subject to human error. If you're looking at the tape measure upside down, it's very easy to count to the wrong side of the number. So anyway, I have a standard 8-foot sheet, which would be a lot easier to move than the 12-foot. I use the 12-foot up there because it goes across the top of the door. But down here, it only needs to get to the door, and I don't need that extra length. So an 8-foot sheet is going to go right here. I'm going to shove it through make the prong go through the drywall, and then I will try to secure it and then cut out the little receptacle squares.
We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Good tidings we bring to you and your kin. Good tidings for Christmas and a Happy
Well, I'm settled in for the night and I'm packed up, ready to leave before sunrise in the morning. You know, when I'm working and I'm making good progress, sometimes I feel like I should spend another day here to get more done. But then I spend about an hour or so cleaning up and organizing, and then by that point, I have no energy left. My body's completely sore, I can barely move. And at that point, I know that I made the right decision to leave, or at least to pack up to leave. On the last morning, I've stuck around an extra day a few times before, and it's always the same result. That's how I know my energy levels. Anyway, you can see behind me, I have a fully drywalled wall and then a 12-foot section ready to proceed on in the future. When I moved everything back into place, I decided to sweep up and rearrange everything. This time the insulation is on the opposite wall. There's just a massive pile there. These ones drooping down, these are going the full length of the building, and that's why they're long. I just didn't feel the need to cut them and then try to line them back up later. Basically what I need to do is, after I free up some space, tuck those up over the next couple joists to get over the bathroom and over the utility room. So progress is made slowly, but I hope you enjoy this type of content. Let me know what you want to see and what type of projects you'd be interested in having me record, because I don't record everything. Anyway, I'll see you next time here on Kind Heart Homestead.